Hey everybody, it is Brett, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm coming to you to discuss first quarter faves. I have 10 books I want to go over with you. I recorded this entire episode yesterday and was so excited and really jazzed, and then I went to edit it last night, and for some reason there was no sound. I don't know what happened. I don't think I hit anything. So I'm looking at this present moment to make sure that I'm not actually muted. But okay, I think I'm on. Hopefully this went through. So stick around. Let's talk books. Okay, before I break into my 10 books that I have marked as my first quarter faves, I have to tell you about the book that I'm reading right now. It is a debut novel coming out at the end of this month by Virginia Evans called The Correspondent. It is really, really wonderful. I had a few people that I saw over on Bookstagram talking about this and how great it was. And it really is. It is a story about an older woman and her correspondence. It's an epistolatory novel. And so it's letters that she's writing to friends. She has struck up relationships with various authors, including like Anne Patchett and Joan Didion. So clearly this is not present day, but because she's read their books and they meant so much to her. And so the letters she writes to them, it's really, really good and really, really, really beautiful. And it's a really, such a great way to tell a story that I personally haven't seen in a long, long time. So check it out when it comes out, but I'm really, really, really enjoying it. Okay, so there's that. Now, on to my 10. All right, so I read 32 books this first quarter. And I honestly could have probably said more books than this. These were just the ones that had just maybe a little bit extra, but I really have read most everything I've read this year, I've at least enjoyed. So I don't know, there you go. Maybe I'm a softie, but all right. These are in no particular order. I just piled them up and excuse me while I scratch my eye. All right, the first one is Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaghy. I really liked her book, Once There Were Wolves, but I like this much more. This is about a family, a widowed father and his 3 children who are living on this island that is home to a seed vault. And this seed vault actually exists. What they are is vaults that house seeds of all kinds of trees and plants and flowers. In the event of a disaster, you can regrow. So there's scientists that have been on this island working with this seed vault. A woman washes up on shore who has been badly beaten in the waves, been in some kind of boat crash. And so they kind of bring her back, and what happens? It's a little bit of a mystery. There's shifting narratives between the members of the family and this woman who washes up on the shore. I was totally here for it. Also a great audiobook. Charlotte was also on the Behind the Stack podcast. Some of these other authors were as well. So if you've read the book, you should definitely check that out. Shameless plug, but really enjoyed. All right, then I only have one nonfiction book all of this first quarter, which is shocking to me, and I'm frankly ashamed, and that's one of the things that I want to fix going forward into this next quarter, and I already am, because I'm also reading that Careless, which is the Facebook book, which is so jaw-dropping. Everybody should read this book. Everybody should read this book or listen to this book. And I know today is Wednesday, and I believe she is testifying in front of Congress today, she being Sarah Wynne Williams, who worked at Facebook for 7 years. And this is kind of an expose. It's really... Well, first of all, the book is incredibly... it's incredibly readable. She's a great writer. She keeps the kind of suspense and things really propelling forward, but it's also horrific, and like, just these people aren't good people, and we should all be off certain platforms, if not all of them. Anyway, so that's Careless People, which is also pretty great and informative and terrifying and gross. Okay, so, but the other nonfiction, the one I did read for the first quarter was Raising Hare by Chloe Dalton. I'm seeing this all over the place. It should be all over the place. It's a really beautiful, beautiful story. Chloe Dalton was a political consultant and a speechwriter who, during the COVID lockdown, went to a family home in the countryside. And while she was there was a hare who was hurt, a baby hare, that she, against her, at least her sister, who's a vet's better judgment, said, don't take care of it. And she did. And she brought it back to health. And what happened, and how her life changed, and how her life in regards to the natural world changed, and what it meant to her. And it's beautiful. And I will also add that if you are on Instagram, check out her page, Chloe Dalton's page, because it is a treasure trove of videos and pictures of the hare. And so it's a great addition to the book. All right, next, Open Heaven by Seán Hewitt. I loved this book. This is actually, if you're talking technical books, this is not Seán Hewitt's first book. He is a poet. He had published a nonfiction, a memoir a few years ago called All Down Darkness Wide, which was really beautiful. And I read that before this book. I love this. Again, I love poets who then write prose because it's so incredibly beautiful. It's like Ocean Vuong and again, Garth Greenwell. Seán is the same. It's just stunning prose. This is about a young boy who in a small rural English town who is gay, and there is another young man who ends up at a neighboring home who's been taken in because he has behavioral issues. And so these two become friends. The book is really about, kind of unmitigated longing because our protagonist is in love with this friend who is straight. And so it will never be reciprocated. And what is that feeling like? And what does that do to a person? And I think so many of us have been there at one point in our life, gay or straight. It's a real thing. Look, Pedro Pascal is never going to understand how much I love him. As does my daughter and so many other people. And how could he not know? Happy birthday, Pedro. All right, so that's Open Heaven. It's fantastic. It comes out April 15th here in the States. Also, a little bonus spoiler, Seán will be coming on Behind the Stack, and he's as charming as he is a phenomenal writer. All right, next, Where the Axe is Buried by Ray Nayler. For any of you, speaking of Behind the Stack, who are following the podcast, Ray was my guest this past week. He is brilliant. I am in awe of his mind. If you don't even listen to the podcast, at least listen to the introduction so you can hear his bio, which is so incredible. A few years ago, he wrote this amazing book called The Mountain and the Sea, which I flipped out over because I was in my octopus phase, and it's about this group of super octopus and scientists who start to learn how to communicate with it and what it means. This is his follow-up, which is a very prescient story about authoritarianism and a world under that regime, bringing in AI. It's frightening. It's all too real. And as much as he will say it's not based on any one thing or any one country, I think you will immediately be able to draw parallels if you are aware at all of what is happening in the news, especially if you're watching the debacle that is the U.S. right now. So there you go. Good book. Then, okay, Nicola Dinan, disappoint me. I am such a super fan of Nicola Dinan. I cannot shout it at the mountaintops enough. Her first book, Bellies, which came out 3 years ago, was so good and knocked me in the gut. And I was like, who is this writer? This is her new book. I just think she captures such the zeitgeist of young people today. And it is about a 31-year-old trans woman, 30 or 31-year-old trans woman, very successful in her career, who has just broken up with her boyfriend. And she falls one night at a New Year's Eve party. And when she comes to, she really kind of reassesses her life. And she meets this incredible guy who seems perfect. And so what begins to develop, along with all of her friends and her friend group, the narrative splits between the present with her and her boyfriend and her friends to her boyfriend's past up till this current moment. and eventually the past and the present collide. But it is, she writes incredible dialogue. She writes incredible characters. She's so insightful, really funny, very real. I just think she is like a bright literary star, and I'm certifiably obsessed with her. So that's Disappoint Me. This comes out May 27th in the US. I know it's also out right now in the UK. So check it out. All right, my next book, I don't have a copy of it with me in front of me right now, but it is The Antidote by Karen Wheeler. I've talked about how much I love this book before. Set in the Dust Bowl, it's a quintet effectively of characters led by a young girl whose single mother has been murdered, so she goes to live with her uncle. But it's this witch, this prairie witch, who is known as the Antidote, who is someone who people go to lose dreams or memories that are haunting them, and she takes them from you. All of these characters intersect. It is doused in magical realism, but in a way that worked for me. And it's not overly done. I just thought it was some incredible writing. You know, I had read her first book, Swamplandia, probably 20 years ago. And I don't remember it having any effect on me, rather than probably at the time thinking, I'm really smart to be reading this literary fiction. But I just, for some reason, I was hearing so much pre-publication buzz about this that I really wanted to try it out. And I'm so glad I did. And again, loved it. Absolutely, absolutely loved it. So that's The Antidote. Next, A Gorgeous Excitement by Cynthia Weiner. I think this is the coolest cover. All right, first of all, this is a prime example. It's a debut, and such an assured, fantastic debut. But when I read it, I did not expect, here we are in April, and I'm still thinking about this book that I read all the way back in January. Cynthia Weiner wrote this book, which is based on her own experiences growing up Jewish, like a young Jewish girl in the 80s, in the kind of hedonistic 80s of New York City. With a group of really wealthy, waspy kids who all went to private school, partied hard during the week, cut classes, did drugs in Central Park, had fake IDs, just did the whole thing, right? However, one of her group was this young man named Robert Chambers. And Robert Chambers, for those of you who are up on your true crime, was known as the preppy murderer. And murdered this girl in Central Park. That is the basis for her, the launch-off point for this book. So it starts with a body found in Central Park of one of their own, this group of friends, and this girl, her story, and her mother, who is manic. And it's great. It's so good. But I will caution you and say it is not as much a thriller, because some people have said it's a thriller. It's not a thriller to me. What happened in the park, obviously you're going to build up to this in the book. And there is a sense of menace that increases as the book goes on. But I would say it is a thriller. If you're calling like Liz Moore books thrillers, okay, well then it's a thriller. But if you look at Liz Moore like I do, which is more lit fic with some suspense, that's what this is. But again, really fantastic book, great characters. And like, speaking of characters, New York City is such a prevalent character in this whole thing in the best way. And for anyone who knew New York in the 80s, this will be a real treat. It reminds me a little bit of a female version of a Bret Easton Ellis novel. Or I know it's being likened to Jay McInerney's Bright Lights, Big City. And I get that too, but great. All right, then Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell. I got it right. God, did I love this book. And I would have never had known about this book if it was not for the Woman's Prize, their long list. And so that's why I love these book prizes. You may not read every book on the book prize. You may only do one. You might not do any of them. But I love that it's always, they're finding things that you wouldn't necessarily come across. And this was one of those books. This is about a young Irish woman, a mom. She's got two young daughters, and she finds she's pregnant with a third, who walks out of her home one day to escape the abusive relationship that she's in with her husband. It is not a physically abusive relationship. Not that it wouldn't eventually lead there, because what it is it's an extremely tiring and mentally abusive relationship. She has written one of the most hateful characters I've certainly read this year in the husband. I just wanted to pummel him. But she has also written one of the best characters of the year in this protagonist, this young woman. Incredible character as we watch her try to get back on her feet, find her footing, and fight back. So fantastic. Also, terrific audio, but I just couldn't believe how much I absolutely love this book. So check that out. And I was personally crushed it didn't make the short list for the Women's Prize. Twist by Colum McCann. This was something that totally shocked me, not because it's slim. I listened to this on audio. Cover, love this cover so much. It almost looks like an X-ray of a rib cage to me. Or like one of those magic eye things that if you stare at it long enough, another image will come out. But this is about a Irish journalist who has been set to report on this guest captain of a boat, who their job is to go out and in the ocean, didn't know any of this, there are cable lines that run at the bottom of the ocean that are information lines, that are internet, banking information, all of this stuff on the quote-unquote superhighway. I thought all this stuff was in a cloud somewhere. It was all up in the sky. Here, come to find out, there are actually these cables that run on the ocean floor. And when one of them breaks, of course, it disrupts many kinds of service and can be catastrophic. So these boats have to go out, find the cable, bring it up, and fix it. And the actual fixing part is the easiest part of the whole thing. It's the pinpointing it, finding it, and then diving down to get them and how they get them. There's a sequence in here that involves a free dive. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that means you have no tank. You're literally just holding your breath and going down under. And it is so incredibly claustrophobic and like nail biting. I listened to this on audio. I loved it so much I bought the book. But Colum McCann reads it and does a phenomenal job. It's a really quick novel, so if you're wanting something that's not going to take up too much of your time, check this out. I thought it was so interesting, and it really becomes about the captain or the boss on the boat and who he is and the secrets he may be hiding, as well as everything else that takes place. So that's Twist. And then my final book of my top 10 was Woodworking by Emily St. James. Wow. All right. This book. So I'd heard about this book. I got a copy of it, and I think I reached out like at the last second to NetGalley and then got approved and read it, and I loved it so much. This is about a trans woman in South Dakota who is a teacher at a school, and she's very new to being trans and struggling, like, how do I do this? And one of her students that is in her class is a young trans girl. And their friendship that develops, and the people in this very small town, and what happens. I know in the outset, I mean, your first thought was probably like, really? 2 trans people in the same small town in America, blah, blah, blah. But yeah. And guess what? All of it works. And beyond that, it is so funny and so poignant and warm. These characters are so amazing. It's like the most fantastic, heartwarming comedy, if I was summing this up as a movie. And with trans rights and trans individuals being so attacked right now, so ridiculously, unnecessarily, like absurdly attacked right now. And that's really what it is. I mean, hook, line, and sinker. That's what it is. It's bullshit. This is the most amazing book if anyone wants to understand what it is for someone who recognizes and knows that they're in the wrong body. This is the book. It is just great. And if you've read the book, then go check out my conversation with Emily St. James. Because after I read this thing, even though the book was coming out the week I finished, I was like, please, I reached out to her. I was like, I have to have you on my show. I have to talk to you. And because I loved it that much. All right. So those are my 10 books for my first quarter faves. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you've read. I know some of you have read, I definitely know some of you have read Nesting. I definitely know some of you have read Woodworking. And I definitely know some of you have read the Charlotte McConaghy book. But tell me all the things. I hope you're all having a great day, evening, wherever you are. And I will be back next week with another episode of Behind the Stack. And for all of you who are watching or listening, I appreciate it, and I appreciate it more than you know. I love doing it. And for those of you who are enjoying this, and this might be your first time here, please consider like and subscribing. I would love that as well. So, all right, you all, have a great rest of your whatever, and I'll see you all soon.